Dr. Elena Voss adjusted the collar of her expedition jacket as the artificial climate system of the Concord archives struggled against Centauri Prime's oppressive humidity. 3 months of requesting access to the Xenological Historical Wing had finally paid off, though the Concord administrators had relegated her to the night cycle when most scholars preferred rest. "Their loss," she muttered, her fingers tracing the ancient Novan script that scrolled across the archive's display. Elena specialized in cross-referencing historical anomalies, events that appeared in multiple species records but couldn't be verified through conventional archaeology. The terminal chirped as her algorithm identified another match. "That's the 17th reference," she whispered, excitement building. Across 17 distinct alien civilizations, spanning 8,000 years, the same human vessel appeared in historical texts. Thunderchild. The holographic reconstruction hovered before her, a warship of impossible design, its hull geometric yet fluid, like water frozen in mid-flow. According to Draconian War Chronicles, it had decimated an invasion fleet approaching Sol. Lyric and poetry described it as the shadow that guards the fragile Earth nest. Most peculiar were quantid temporal records claiming the vessel exists in defiance of linear progression. Elena's academic rivals dismissed her research as studying alien fairy tales. Humanity had documented its technological progression meticulously since before leaving Earth, and no warship named Thunderchild appeared anywhere in the historical record. Yet here was evidence that spacefaring civilizations far older than humanity recognized this phantom vessel. "You've exceeded your allocated research period, human scholar," announced a monotone voice as the lights brightened uncomfortably. A Kelnar administrator, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the harsh light, approached her terminal. "I have 3 more hours according to my authorization," Elena protested, quickly transferring her findings to her personal datapad. The Kelnar's sensory appendages flickered with subtle patterns that Elena recognized as annoyance. "The Academic Council has reprioritized access. Your research topic has been reclassified." "Reclassified? On whose authority?" Elena stood her ground, knowing how Concord bureaucracy worked. Show weakness, and you'd be ignored entirely. Councillor Thravix himself. "The study of fictional human vessels is deemed non-essential." The Kelnar's tone carried the condescension typical of elder species addressing humans. "These references appear across too many civilizations to be fictional," Elena countered, holding up her datapad. "Look at the quantid account. They're describing quantum temporal technology that even the Concord hasn't mastered." The Kelnar's crystalline body stiffened. "The quantid texts are metaphorical, not technical. Your species often misinterprets poetic language as literal." He extended a formal notice tablet. "Your access is revoked pending review. The Council has deemed further study potentially disruptive to established historical frameworks." Elena accepted the tablet, maintaining a professional demeanor despite her frustration. As she gathered her equipment, she noticed something odd. The Kelnar was performing a secondary scan of her workspace, his auxiliary sensory clusters active. He was looking for something specific. Outside the archives, the pink-tinged rain of Centauri Prime soaked her jacket as she waited for the transit shuttle. Her hand instinctively checked the hidden pocket where she'd stored her backup drive. Not the datapad the Kelnar had seen, but an old-fashioned physical storage device disguised as an antique Earth wristwatch. Her communication implant chimed with a message from her research assistant, Wai Chen. "Lab accessed by unknown entities. Equipment damage. Research backup servers wiped. Are you safe?" Elena stared at the message, rain streaming down her face. The Concord, the supposed bastion of galactic knowledge and cooperation, was actively suppressing information about a human ship that shouldn't exist, which meant the Thunderchild was very real, and the most advanced species in the galaxy were terrified of humanity discovering it. Commander Jackson Wei hadn't seen Elena since their academy days, yet here she was in his office aboard the human defense fleet station orbiting Mars, looking as if she hadn't slept in days. "You're telling me the Concord is suppressing information about a warship that doesn't exist?" Jackson leaned back in his chair, eyebrow raised. His uniform bore the modest insignia of the Reconnaissance Division, the only branch that would still speak with Alina after her controversial publications on pre-contact human artifacts. They didn't just suppress it, Jack. They ransacked my lab and wiped servers containing years of research. Alina projected a hologram from her disguise wristwatch. But they missed this. The image showed 17 distinct references to the Thunderchild across different alien records, each describing capabilities beyond current human engineering. This could be coincidence, Jackson said, though his expression had shifted from skepticism to curiosity. Ancient aliens might have witnessed an experimental Earth vessel and exaggerated its capabilities. Except the oldest reference predates human spaceflight by 6,000 years. Alina highlighted a Proximan cave painting showing a distinctive vessel defending primitive humans from shadowy entities. And there's more. I've triangulated these sightings to predict where we might find physical evidence. Let me guess. You need a fleet officer to requisition a ship. Alina's tired face broke into a smile. Remember Europa, our field training expedition, where we nearly froze to death because someone forgot to pack thermal regulators. Jackson chuckled. The subsurface ocean. Recent Sentinel probes detected an anomalous structure in the ice shell, perfectly preserved and predating human exploration of the Jogian system. Jackson's smile faded. Alina, civilian access to Europa has been restricted for 2 years. The Concorde cited indigenous biological preservation as justification. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Alina pulled up another image, a thermal scan showing a geometric pattern beneath Europa's ice, too regular to be natural. This was taken by the last research team before restrictions. The Concorde confiscated all their findings, but one researcher sent me this before communication was cut. 3 days later, their unmarked survey vessel approached Europa under the pretense of routine ice composition studies. Jackson had called in every favor he had accumulated in 15 years of military service. Alina monitored sensor readings as they positioned above the anomaly. Radiation signature is unlike anything in our database, she reported. It's fluctuating, almost as if it exists in multiple timeframes simultaneously. Jackson finished, staring at the readings. Like the quantid described. Drilling through Europa's ice took 16 hours. When their submersible finally breached into the pocket beneath, floodlights illuminated a chamber that shouldn't exist, smooth walls carved into perfect geometric patterns, preserved in the ice for millennia. The metal composition is impossible, Alina whispered, analyzing the scanner results. These isotope configurations violate basic nuclear physics. In the center of the chamber stood a crystalline structure resembling a data core. When Alina approached it, the device activated, projecting schematics across the chamber walls, intricate blueprints for a vessel unmistakably matching the legendary Thunderchild. This technology is centuries beyond our current capabilities, Jackson said, voice hushed with awe. Look at the quantum displacement drive alone. We've only theorized such systems. Alina touched the projection, and the blueprints responded by expanding further detail. Jack, the dating analysis puts this at over 10,000 years old. That's impossible. A notification flashed on Jackson's military communicator. He paled as he read it. What is it? Alina asked. Orders from Fleet Command. Destroy all evidence and return to Earth immediately. He looked up at her. Simultaneously, 6 Concorde dreadnoughts just entered the solar system. They're converging on Europa. Alina stared at the blueprint hovering before them, the impossible ship that apparently threatened the most powerful beings in the galaxy. We need to copy these schematics, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Whatever this ship is, humanity needs to know. We have 20 minutes before they detect our thermal signature, Jackson said, disabling their submersible's transponder. Alina worked frantically, capturing the schematics with her personal scanner, while Jackson prepared explosive charges, not to destroy the evidence as ordered, but to collapse the ice tunnel above them, hiding their presence. Got it, Elena confirmed as her device completed the download. But this data is massive. We'll need to compress it or hide it where no one would think to look. Jackson finished. The public entertainment channels. They transmit exabytes of meaningless data every second. They surfaced through a different ice bore, 10 kilometers from their entry point, just as the first Concorde ship entered Europa's orbit. Elena encoded the Thunderchild schematics as corrupted entertainment files and transmitted them through civilian channels, hidden in plain sight among comedy shows and reality programming. 3 days later, aboard a refugee transport bound for Earth's lunar colonies, Elena jolted awake from another vivid dream. In it, she'd been standing on the bridge of a massive warship, issuing commands during a battle against shadow-like entities. Jackson, seated beside her, appeared equally disturbed. "You had the dream too," she said, not a question but a certainty. He nodded. "Third night in a row. I was weapons officer. You were commanding." "That's impossible," Elena whispered. "We can't be sharing identical dreams." When they reached Luna, they sought out Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, Earth's leading temporal physicist, sharing their discovery and the strange dreams. In his cramped laboratory beneath Armstrong City, Nakamura analyzed the corrupted data files they'd smuggled from Europa. "These aren't ordinary blueprints," Nakamura said, eyes wide behind archaic spectacles. "They contain quantum temporal markers, residual energy signatures from objects that have traveled through time." "That's impossible," Jackson protested. "So is sharing dreams about a ship that doesn't exist," Elena countered, then turned to Nakamura. "You're saying these blueprints came from the future?" "Not just the future, multiple potential futures." Nakamura pointed to analysis graphs. "These energy signatures show temporal branching, like ripples moving backward through time from multiple origin points." As they discussed temporal physics, Elena's attention was drawn to news broadcasts reporting escalating attacks along human border colonies. The mysterious void reavers, entities that existed partially outside normal spacetime, had intensified their assaults. Entire colony ships vanished, leaving behind only temporal distortion fields. "Wait," Elena said suddenly, pulling up her research on Thunderchild sightings. She overlaid the coordinates with known reaver attack locations. They matched perfectly. Everywhere the legendary Thunderchild appeared in alien historical records corresponds exactly with reaver attack sites, she breathed. As if the ship was sent to defend those locations, Jackson finished. "But that would mean..." "The Thunderchild hasn't been built yet," Nakamura concluded, "but it will be. And somehow, it will travel back through time to defend humanity at critical junctures." A sudden realization struck Elena. She analyzed recovered reaver communication patterns, comparing them to standard brainwave signatures. "These match human neural patterns," she said, horror dawning on her face. "Distorted and corrupted, but fundamentally human." "That's impossible," Jackson argued. "Reavers have been attacking human colonies for decades. What if they're not attacking?" Elena's voice trembled. "What if they're trying to communicate? What if the Reavers are humans, transformed by temporal forces we don't understand?" Before they could process this revelation, emergency alerts blared throughout the lunar colony. The Concorde ambassador had just declared Earth under protective quarantine for containment of temporal contamination. All interstellar travel was suspended. "They're not protecting us," Jackson realized. "They're containing us." Elena stared at the Thunderchild schematics glowing on Nakamura's screen. "They know what we'll become if we build this ship, and they're terrified." The Concorde's protective quarantine proved unexpectedly advantageous. With interstellar communications restricted, the massive project beneath Mare Imbrium's crater proceeded undetected. Humanity's greatest minds had been quietly assembled, each told only fragments of their true purpose until they arrived at the facility, hidden 2 kilometers beneath the lunar surface. Elena stood on the observation deck, watching as robotic constructors assembled hull sections according to the Europa schematics. The enormous skeleton of the Thunderchild was taking shape in the cavernous underground dock. "We've solved the propulsion equations," Dr. Nakamura announced, joining her. "The quantum displacement drive doesn't break physics so much as sidestep it. The ship exists partially outside conventional spacetime, allowing it to." An emergency klaxon interrupted him. The facilities director, Admiral Chandra, appeared on communication screens throughout the complex. "All section chiefs to command immediately. Scout ship Hermes has returned from the Proxima border. Emergency protocols engage." The Hermes had been missing for 3 weeks, presumed destroyed by Reaver attacks. When Elena and Jackson arrived at command, they found the scout ship quarantined in a separate hangar, surrounded by temporal containment fields. "The crew is alive, but in a state I'd never seen before," the medical officer reported. "They're experiencing temporal displacement syndrome, aging backward and forward randomly." "What about the ship's data?" Jackson asked. "Heavily corrupted, but we're extracting what we can," replied the chief technician. "There's a message repeating throughout the ship's logs, embedded in every system." The main screen displayed the fragmented transmission. Elena gasped as the sender's face briefly appeared. Her own face, decades older, wearing a uniform she'd never seen. The message played in fragments. "Loop must continue. Reavers break through in 2157. Only the Thunderchild can cross the temporal divide. 17 variants converging. The array must be neutralized." 2157, Jackson whispered. "That's only 3 months from now." Admiral Chandra turned to Elena. "Dr. Voss, does this confirm your theory?" She nodded, still processing the shock of seeing her future self. "The Thunderchild is part of a temporal loop. It's not just a weapon. It's a fixed point in time, essential to humanity's survival." "Then we accelerate construction," Chandra decided. "Every resource we have goes to completing the ship before." The facility shook violently. Dust drifted from the ceiling as emergency lights activated. "Concord blockade ships are firing on Earth cities," reported the communication officer, voice tight with shock. "They claim to be targeting temporal anomalies, but they're hitting civilian centers." "They found us," Jackson said. "No," Elena realized, studying sensor data. "They're creating a distraction. Look at these energy readings. They've deployed temporal detection grids across the solar system. They're searching for something." "For the Thunderchild," Nakamura concluded. A junior officer burst into the command center. "A Concord spy drone penetrated our outer defenses. It scanned the construction bay before self-destructing. They expected immediate bombardment. Instead, sensor readings showed the Concord ships redirecting their attacks to major population centers on Earth." "I can understand," Admiral Chandra said, watching in horror as casualty reports flooded in. "Why not strike us directly?" "Because they're terrified," Elena realized. "Not just of the ship, but of what humanity represents. We've detected the remnants of quantum communications between their vessels. They are reporting to something called the Temporal Nullification Array." Jackson studied tactical displays showing Concord attack patterns. "They're not trying to destroy the Thunderchild. They're trying to delay its completion by forcing us to divert resources to civilian defense." Admiral Chandra's expression hardened. "They've miscalculated. As of this moment, all remaining Earth and lunar resources are directed to Project Thunderchild." She turned to Elena and Jackson. "You two have connected with this ship through your dreams. You'll be among its first crew." Elena stared at the construction bay where the legendary Warship was taking form, a ship she would apparently command across time itself. 3 months, she murmured. "We have 3 months to complete what should take years. It shouldn't be possible." Chief Engineer Maya Ryoko muttered, staring at the component hovering in the fabrication chamber. The crystalline structure refused to form according to the blueprints, its molecular lattice collapsing each time they attempted to stabilize it. This material configuration violates quantum stability principles. 2 months had passed since the Concorde's attacks began. Earth's orbital defenses were failing, Millions had been evacuated to underground shelters, and the Thunderchild remained incomplete. "The ship won't let us build it wrong," Elena said, reviewing the latest simulations. Her dreams had intensified. Memories of battles not yet fought, technologies not yet understood. "It's not just a vessel. It's a nexus point across multiple timelines." Maya sighed in frustration. "That's fascinating theoretically, Dr. Voss, but it doesn't help me fabricate a temporal displacement core that shouldn't exist." Elena studied the failing component, an idea forming. "What if we're approaching this backwards? The ship already exists in other timelines. It's trying to remember its proper form through us." "You're suggesting it has consciousness?" Maya asked skeptically. "Not independently," Elena clarified. "It's connected to human consciousness across time. The shared dreams, the temporal markers, they're guideposts." Elena called together the engineering team, instructing them to place their hands on the fabrication chamber's sensor plates while focusing on their shared dream memories of the Thunderchild. Maya monitored the quantum readings, eyes widening as the component's molecular structure began stabilizing itself. "It's working," she whispered. "The temporal harmonics are aligning with human brainwave patterns." Across the facility, similar breakthroughs occurred. Components that had resisted conventional manufacturing methods formed perfectly when guided by collective human thought. The Thunderchild wasn't merely being built, it was remembering its existence through the minds of its creators. Jackson found Elena on the partially completed bridge, where installation crews were connecting neural interface systems. "We've decoded more of the Herm's message," he said, his expression grave. "The Reavers aren't just attacking random locations. They're targeting 17 specific temporal nexus points, coordinates where reality branches most significantly." "The same number as the historical Thunderchild sightings," Elena noted. "Exactly. And there's more." Jackson activated a holographic display. "We've analyzed Reaver energy signatures captured during recent attacks. When they're destroyed, they briefly emit human genetic markers." Elena's throat tightened. "So my theory was right. They were human once." "Not just human," Jackson corrected. "According to these genetic patterns, they're us, versions of Thunderchild crew members from failed timelines." The implication struck Elena like a physical blow. "We're fighting ourselves across time." "Yes, but why? What transforms humans into Reavers?" The ship's communication system activated unexpectedly, though it wasn't yet connected to main power. A message scrolled across all displays. "Calibration complete. Timeline convergence imminent. The loop approaches closure." "It's talking to us," Elena whispered. The facility shook violently as proximity alarms blared. Admiral Chandra's voice came over the emergency channel. "The Concorde blockade has collapsed. Multiple temporal rifts detected at the system's edge. The Reavers have broken through early. Earth's final defensive line was failing." Orbital platforms reported massive distortions in spacetime as Reaver vessels emerge. Horrific amalgamations of organic and mechanical components that seemed to shift between different physical states. In the construction bay, the Thunderchild systems activated spontaneously, power flowing through circuits that engineers hadn't yet connected. Neural interfaces glowed, calling to the humans who had dreamed of serving aboard her. "We're out of time," Admiral Chandra announced, entering the bridge. "The ship isn't ready, but it's our only hope. Dr. Voss, Commander Wei, assume your stations. You'll command the first trial run." Elena settled into the captain's chair, the same one she'd sat in countless times in her dreams. The neural interface connected, and suddenly she could feel the entire ship as an extension of herself. More than that, she could sense the crew, their thoughts, fears, and determination merging into a collective consciousness guided by the ship itself. "The Thunderchild isn't just remembering us," she realized. "We're remembering her." "All stations report," Elena commanded, her voice steadier than she felt as the incomplete Thunderchild rose from its lunar cradle. Warning indicators flashed across neural interfaces, systems untested, weapons unpowered, hull sections exposed to vacuum. Engineering reports temporal drive at 60% capacity, Jackson announced from his station. Weapons systems online but uncalibrated. Shield harmonics unstable. The view screen showed Earth's orbital defenses collapsing as Reaver vessels phased in and out of conventional spacetime. Immune to traditional weapons, civilian evacuation ships struggled to escape the solar system. Plot intercept course for the largest Reaver concentration, Helena ordered. All power to forward shields. The Thunderchild accelerated, its quantum displacement drive creating a visible distortion field around the hull. As they approached the Reaver fleet, Helena felt an unnatural pressure against her consciousness, a psychic attack probing for weaknesses. They know us, she realized aloud. They're scanning for familiar neural patterns. The pressure intensified as the Reavers recognized the Thunderchild. Their attacks redirected, focusing entirely on the legendary ship they seemed determined to destroy. The vessel shuddered under concentrated temporal energy blasts. Shield harmonics failing, Jackson reported. Conventional defenses won't hold against temporal weapons. Helena closed her eyes, connecting deeper to the ship's neural interface. The Thunderchild had faced this battle before, across countless timelines. The knowledge was there, encoded in the ship's very structure. Synchronize all crew neural patterns, she ordered. The ship remembers how to fight them. We need to let it guide us. As the crew connected through the ship's neural network, something extraordinary happened. Helena's perception expanded beyond the confines of the bridge, beyond the ship itself. She could see tactical possibilities branching like rivers before her, potential futures, probable outcomes. More than that, she could perceive the crew as extensions of her own consciousness, their thoughts and actions flowing into a unified whole. Temporal countermeasures engage, she announced, though she hadn't pressed any controls. The knowledge had simply emerged from the ship's memory into her mind, her hands executing commands she hadn't consciously initiated. The Thunderchild's hull rippled as it partially phased out of conventional reality, matching the Reaver's quantum state. Weapons that had been inoperable moments before activated, firing pulses that tracked Reaver vessels across dimensional boundaries. We're hitting them, Jackson confirmed, his voice tinged with awe. Conventional sensors can't track the impacts, but they're taking damage. Through the neural interface, Helena witnessed a Reaver vessel disintegrate under the Thunderchild's assault. In the moment before its destruction, its form briefly stabilized, revealing a grotesque, twisted version of a human vessel. On its hull, barely visible, were the faded letters, UNDERCHO. They're us, Helena whispered, corrupted versions of the Thunderchild from failed timelines. As the battle intensified, the crew's shared consciousness expanded further. Helena found herself experiencing multiple versions of the same moments simultaneously, fighting this battle across divergent timelines, seeing outcomes that hadn't yet occurred alongside those that had. In one horrifying vision, she watched the Thunderchild fall, its systems corrupted by Reaver energy, its crew transformed into the very entities they fought. In another, the ship triumphed, but at the cost of Earth itself, temporal backlash shattering the planet's chronological integrity. We can't just fight defensively, Helena realized, the ship's memories becoming clearer. We need to trace the Reavers to their source, the temporal nullification array at the galaxy's edge. The Thunderchild shuddered as a massive temporal charge struck its port side. Hull breaches opened across 3 decks, emergency force fields failing faster than damage control could respond. We're not going to survive long enough to reach the array, Jackson warned, damage reports flooding his console. Helena's neural connection to the ship deepened, revealing one final, desperate option. We don't need to reach it in this timeline, she said. We need to activate the full temporal drive. Activating the full temporal drive could tear the ship apart, Jackson warned as another section of the Thunderchild's hull buckled under Reaver assault. The systems weren't completely integrated during construction. The ship knows how to make the jump, Helena insisted, information flowing through her neural connection. It's done this before, countless times across different timelines. Admiral Chandra's voice came through damaged communication systems. "Dr. Voss, what exactly are you proposing?" "The Thunderchild isn't just built to fight the Reavers. It's designed to break a temporal loop," Alina explained. "The temporal drive can move us outside conventional time, allowing us to trace the Reavers to their origin point." Through the neural interface, Alina shared her understanding with the crew. The temporal nullification array existed at the galaxy's edge, a massive artificial structure spanning multiple realities simultaneously. The Concord had built it millennia ago to prevent any species from developing time manipulation technology that might threaten their dominance. When species approach this threshold, the array creates Reavers from that species' own future to eliminate the threat. Alina continued, "The Reavers attacking us are corrupted versions of ourselves from timelines where the array succeeded. Why is human consciousness resistant to the array's influence?" Jackson asked. Alina accessed deeper ship memories, something in our neural architecture, our ability to conceptualize nonlinear time through imagination. It allowed the Thunderchild to be created in one timeline and echo across others. That's why the Concord fears us. Damage reports flooded command consoles as Reaver attacks intensified. Earth's final defensive platforms failed, and temporal distortions began affecting the planet's chronosphere. "We're out of options," Admiral Chandra acknowledged. "Initiate temporal jump." Alina closed her eyes, synchronizing fully with the ship. The neural connection expanded beyond individual crew members into a singular consciousness. Through it, Alina could see the array, a massive structure resembling an ornate web spun across the fabric of reality itself. At its core pulsed what could only be described as the heart of time, manipulated by ancient Concord technology to enforce a single rigid timeline. "Temporal drive engaging," she announced, though no words were necessary within their shared consciousness. The Thunderchild shuddered as its quantum displacement core activated fully. Reality itself seemed to bend around the ship, stars stretching into luminous streaks. Every crew member experienced the sensation of existing in multiple places simultaneously as the vessel phased between timelines. When reality stabilized, they found themselves in a region of space unlike any charted by humanity, a place where galaxies collided in suspended animation, where stars existed in quantum superposition between birth and death. "Where are we?" Jackson whispered, though the question seemed meaningless in this place. "When are we?" Alina corrected. "We've moved outside conventional time, to the space between moments." The view screen adjusted to display a structure that defied comprehension. The temporal nullification array in its true form. Not a physical construct, but a manipulation of reality's fundamental laws, maintained by technologies beyond human understanding. And orbiting it, countless Reaver vessels, each one a corrupted version of the Thunderchild from a timeline where the array had prevailed. The array doesn't just eliminate threats, Alina realized, understanding flowing through the neural interface. It harvests them, transforming potential temporal technologies into weapons to maintain its control. "Can we destroy it?" Admiral Chandra asked. Alina accessed the ship's deepest memories, discovering a truth that spanned countless iterations of their journey. "No," she answered. "Destroying it would unravel time itself. But we can transform it." She turned to face the crew, their shared consciousness illuminating the only possible solution. The Thunderchild wasn't built as a weapon. It's a key to rewrite the array's fundamental programming. "At what cost?" Jackson asked, sensing her hesitation. Alina watched temporal projections unfold, billions of potential futures branching from this moment. In every successful iteration, the pattern was the same. "To transform the array, we must become part of it," she said softly. "The Thunderchild and its crew must sacrifice themselves to rewrite the rules of reality itself." "There must be another way," Jackson argued, even as the Thunderchild's neural interface showed him the mathematical certainty of Alina's conclusion. "We can't just sacrifice ourselves." "Not sacrifice," Alina corrected. Transformation. We become part of every timeline simultaneously. The legends I discovered, the myths that echo across civilizations. The Reaver vessels detected the Thunderchild's presence outside conventional time. Their corrupted forms converge, weapons that defied physics targeting the ship that represented their original uncorrupted state. We have minutes before they overwhelm us. Admiral Chandra warned. Whatever we're going to do, it must happen now. Through the neural interface, Alina shared her plan with the crew. The Thunderchild would split into quantum echoes, attacking the array at every point in its history simultaneously. They wouldn't destroy it but transform it, converting it from a weapon of control into a shield that prevented temporal manipulation by any single species. The transformation requires human consciousness as a catalyst, Alina explained. Our unique neural patterns will become the foundation of a new temporal constant. The crew made their choice without hesitation. They had seen the alternatives through the ship's temporal sensors, infinite timelines where humanity fell to the Reavers, where countless civilizations were erased by the Concord's manipulations, where time itself unraveled into chaos. Begin sequence, Alina ordered. The Thunderchild divided into 17 quantum echoes, one for each historical appearance Alina had documented in alien records. These spectral reflections of the ship existed simultaneously across both time and space, attacking the array from moments that spanned millennia. The Concorde responded with desperate ferocity. From the heart of the array emerged their final defense, a device designed to erase the concept of humanity itself from the universe's collective memory. As the device powered up, Alina felt the neural connection expanding beyond the ship, beyond the crew, touching minds across countless timelines. She understood the solution with perfect clarity. We don't fight, she told the crew. We create. The 17 crew members synchronized their consciousness one final time. The Thunderchild became a conduit for human consciousness across all timelines, converting the array from a weapon into a shield that prevented any single species from controlling time. Reality rippled outward from the transformed array. Alina witnessed infinite timelines where versions of humanity and the Concorde existed in balance rather than conflict. The ship and crew dispersed across time and space, becoming the very legends that Alina had once studied, and would study again when the loop restarted. In the present timeline, the Reavers attacking Earth suddenly froze, their corrupted forms reverting to their original human shapes before dissolving into particles of light that scattered throughout the cosmos. The Concorde fleet returned to Earth not as conquerors but as equals, humbled by witnessing humanity's sacrifice to save all timelines, including those of their enemies. 6 months later, a young kinorchaeologist named Alina Voss received her first research grant to study recurring anomalies in alien historical records, specifically references to a human warship called Thunderchild that appeared throughout history despite no record of its existence. That night, she dreamed of a ship that traveled through time, of a crew that became legend, of a battle fought across infinite realities. She woke with tears on her face, though she couldn't explain why, and with a sense of purpose that would drive her research for years to come. In her small apartment, an antique wristwatch she'd inherited from a distant relative began ticking after decades of silence. Inside it, hidden beneath its mechanical workings, a quantum data crystal activated, waiting for the moment when Alina would need to remember who she had been and would become again. The Thunderchild hadn't been destroyed. It had transformed into something beyond physical form, a story echoing across time, a legend that had saved reality itself, a myth becoming truth with each retelling. The loop continued, but with a crucial difference. This time, humanity and the Concorde would face the challenges of temporal power together, guided by the echoes of those who had sacrificed everything to ensure time itself remained free.